Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Aligning Support and Success with AI to Improve Customer Retention, brought to you by Technology and Services Industry Association and sponsored by SupportLogic. My name is Vanessa Lucero, and I'll be your moderator for today. Before I get started, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. Today's webinar will be recorded. A link to the recording of today's presentation will be sent to you within 24 hours via email. Audio will be delivered via streaming. All attendees will be in a listen-only mode, and your webinar controls, including volume, are found in the toolbar at the bottom of the webinar player. We encourage your comments and questions. If you think of a question for the presenters at any point, please submit through the Ask a Question box on the top left corner of the webinar player, and we will open it up for a verbal Q&A at the end of today's session. Lastly, feel free to enlarge the presentation to full screen at any time by selecting one of the full screen button options, which are located in the top right corner of the slide player. I would now like to introduce our presenters today. John Ragsdale, Distinguished Researcher, VP Technology Ecosystems, TSIA. Krishna Raja, Founder and CEO, SupportLogic. And Nick Mehta, CEO, Gainsight. As with all of our TSIA webinars, we do have a lot of exciting content to cover in the next 45 minutes, so let's jump right in and get started. John, over to you.
Well, thank you, Vanessa. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We had a huge response to this topic, so I know that this is something that is really resonating with all of you, how to better align support and success with AI to ultimately improve customer retention. And I think that we all intuitively understand that the support experience has a big impact on long-term account value. But what we're talking about today is using AI and some Gen AI elements to better mine that data to truly understand what is leading to customer satisfaction, customer dissatisfaction, and truly understanding the correlation between these positive and negative experience and longer-term business outcomes, such as renewal rates, expand selling, referenceability of accounts, etc. So we're going to be diving in to that today. And we know that about half of our customer success members had budget to invest in various approaches to customer success scorecards or some sort of red, yellow, green coding on accounts. And when you're looking for data to mine for the customer experience, the logical place to start is the support cases. There is so much data locked up in those support cases, data and metadata about really the end-to-end customer experience. There's so much information there. So if you're not using that as part of your health score calculations, you're probably missing out on a big opportunity. And we're also going to mention a little bit about Gen AI today, which is absolutely the hottest topic in the support and starting to bubble up within customer success as well. And we see from a recent survey we did that a third of companies are funding their Gen AI initiatives themselves out of the support organization. And this is one of the first times that we've seen really bleeding edge technology starting within support. Usually it's sales and marketing get all the cool stuff first. But we also see that over half of companies, 54%, are really looking at Gen AI budgets going business unit wide or corporate wide. So hopefully that means that they're really looking at the entire customer lifecycle. We know that 27% of support organizations are currently experimenting with Gen AI, but 2/3 are planning to begin experimenting within the next 6 months. And we're certainly getting an awful lot of inquiry volume on that topic. So we're today not only talking about the potential for AI and Gen AI, but providing some real world customer examples as well. So I am thrilled to have two powerhouse CEOs on the panel with me today. And I want to start by turning things over to our first guest speaker. Krishna Raja is the founder and CEO of SupportLogic. He is not only a brilliant person, he's also one of the kindest people you will ever meet. So Krishna, thank you for joining us for another TSIA webinar.
John, thanks for having me, and thanks for the kind introduction.
Well, why don't you open by telling us a little bit about SupportLogic and how you collaborate with Gainsight?
Absolutely. SupportLogic was founded with a mission that post-sale customer interactions or post-land customer interactions are absolutely essential for the long-term health of a business. Today, if you look at the market, there are close to 8,000 companies, startups specifically, that focus on sales and pre-sale activities, right? But we all know the battle has shifted from landing new logos, and it's all about land and expand, and retention is a key focus area for every company out there. And there's very handful of companies that are focusing on post-sales customer interaction activities. This is the founding basis for SupportLogic. We are basically an observability layer for anything that happens post-land. A lot of interactions happens on the support landscape, onboarding, customer success, so on and so forth. We tap into this underlying systems of record that any company may have that captures the post-land customer interactions. We use natural language processing to extract signals from those interactions. And we give a lot of leading indicators on what's happening with your support, what's happening with the health of the account. So that's the high-level overview of what SupportLogic does. In the recent past, we are super excited to partner with Gainsight. Gainsight needs no introduction. Nick needs no introduction. They've created the category, customer success category. We are big fans of Gainsight and what Nick has done to the industry. So super excited about this partnership. And what we are doing in this partnership is the signals that we're extracting from support conversations, they're so valuable from a customer success context perspective. So we are basically extracting the signals from support using natural language processing, which are buried in the unstructured data, and we're sending them to Gainsight product. That's what we launched 6 months ago. It's been used by a handful of customers, and we're super excited to talk about it today.
I believe
you're on mute.
I think you had one additional slide, Krishna, to talk about the signals that you're detecting and how you relate that to health scores.
Yeah, I mean, the slide that you see in front of you kind of illustrates what the core technology does, right? I know LLM is all the craze right now. We've been using large language models for signal extraction for more than 7 years now. We are one of the early adopters of BERT, which is a transformer technology, which became ChatGPT. What we are doing with this technology is that we tap into your unstructured data, and you see a sample case on the screen right now. We extract signals. When we say signals, we're not just talking about positive or negative sentiment. We go much beyond that. We extract confusion, frustration, impatience, documentation gap, feature request, so on and so forth, competitive threats, so on and so forth. And then we maintain context of the signals across conversational boundaries, which is absolutely important when it comes to B2B support specifically, where you have a running context with every account. It's not transactional. Your support incidents are not transactional. It's not like you do it once and you forget and you never talk to the customer ever again. There is an ongoing relationship with your business. So we maintain context of the signals across a conversational boundaries within the ticket, but also across ticket boundaries in the context of an account. So we compute a running sentiment score, a running health score for every account. And then we also extract keywords found in the body of the tickets, such as the technology terms the customers are using, what are the customers doing with their product, so on and so forth. In addition to the signals coming in from your customers, we also extract signals that are going out from your support engineers to your customers. Why this is important? If your support engineers are not using the right words or they're not interacting with the customers in the right way, it actually impacts your customer experience and support experience drastically. So our NLP basically looks at language patterns used by support engineers and identifies soft skill gaps, gives you coaching opportunities for support engineers. So that's kind of the core essence of what we do. We do a lot more than that. We provide analytics, we provide dashboards, we assign cases automatically, but the fundamental core engine is the signal extraction that you see on the screen.
Well, thanks for that overview and helping us kind of understand more about SupportLogic. Nick, I want to bring you into the conversation. Nick Mehta is the CEO of Gainsight. I think it's safe to say the single most recognizable name in the customer success industry. Nick is quite the celebrity, so thrilled to have you join us today. For anyone who's not that familiar with Gainsight, could you give us a little background on your company?
Yeah, sure. And I don't know about the celebrity thing, John. My kids would definitely disagree with that. So, but maybe a few people in the tech world have been fortunate. We've been fortunate to get to know a lot of companies in the SaaS world. And John, as you know and have written about extensively, and as Krishna alluded to, as companies move to these recurring revenue business models, a lot of the value is about keeping and growing your existing customers. And when we launched the company in 2013, our initial belief was that you had this kind of new function called a customer success team, and that team was going to have a lot of responsibility for retention and expansion. Our first product was all about helping those customer success teams scale and basically drive better retention and expansion by getting the right customer at the right time with the right action. Over time, though, what we figured out is customer success teams are just part of one way to drive customer success. You also have the product, center of the customer experience. You've got kind of how customers talk to each other. You've got how they're trained. And so Gainsight, we now have 4 products: our customer success product, our in-app analytics and engagement product called Gainsight PX, our community product, Gainsight Customer Communities, and our education product to train your customers, Gainsight Customer Education. And we're really excited about the interaction and partnership with SupportLogic, because if you think about it, we touch the CSMs, the community team, the education team, the product team, but a critical part, as Krishna talked about, of the customer experience and likelihood to retain is the support experience, particularly in products where they're support intensive. And we saw, John, and you probably seen this too, in our clients, especially our more technical product clients, over and over again, they're saying, what can you do for the support experience? And we're really pleased to meet SupportLogic and hear that they're working on this exact same problem.
Yeah, we see a strong correlation between satisfaction with support and renewals and expand selling efforts. And so, as I said in the beginning, we all know intuitively that that is the case. The challenge is companies need to really dig into the data to prove that. And we're entering right now into budget cycle. Everybody's starting to work on the budget for next year. And the economy's tight. So I think the more work that you can do to really show the strategic aspect of how support and success can work together, it definitely is going to help when you start looking for some additional investments in technology and people and process, et cetera. So I have a number of questions I want to drive this conversation. And I want to start with just what I was mentioning, making that business case. How can companies make the business case for investing in the customer experience, customer success, getting support and success to work together? Any ideas on that from you two?
Sure, I can start. Definitely, I mentioned we launched Gainsight in 2013, so spent countless hours with thousands of companies trying to help them build a business case for customer success and customer experience more broadly, as well as convince their CEOs and boards of the same thing. Good news, John, as you know, is today in 2023, a lot of companies have already gotten the memo. And at a fundamental level, you cannot be a successful recurring revenue subscription business without driving success for your customers after the sale. You just can't. Now, what we've seen is the business case for different kinds of companies varies. So one business case is I'm in a highly competitive, low stickiness market where churn is pretty inherent. I've got to do more to drive my customers to adoption and retention. And so I have to do that proactively. So that's one category, right? Marketing technology is often in that category. I have another category, which is, I've got a very kind of sticky product where people, once they install it, they really use it. It's hard to leave. But what I want to do is get them really loving what they have so they're more willing to buy new stuff from us, right? That's basically your expansion. Some people call that net revenue retention. So that's the second lever. Third lever is, I know that long-term, the way we get new customers is by having successful existing customers, right? At the end of the day, nowadays when people sell, the customer's already spoken to many of your customers before they even see your demo. And so the third lever is your advocacy, what people sometimes calculate through Net Promoter Score. What's that likelihood that your existing customers are referring you to other customers or would be a strong reference? And then finally, fourth, all of this takes people, right? You have CSMs, you have support people, professional services. How do you do it in a more efficient way so you can scale with people, but also with process and automation? So in summary, it's minimizing churn, optimizing gross retention, driving expansion, optimizing net retention, improving advocacy, driving Net Promoter Score, and then improving efficiency so you get the people doing the human work, but the automation driving the work that humans don't need to do.
So Krishna, I mean, you spent a lot of your career in technical support, and so you understand that support is not always the most respected and appreciated and budgeted group within the organization. So how do you work with your prospects and your customers to get a better visibility from the executive level on the role support plays in the customer experience and ultimately revenue?
Yeah, it's a great question, John. I think this has been the battle for the industry for quite some time, right? Support is always traditionally has been seen as a cost center. I think that notion has completely changed. Support has been seen as a revenue center now. I think more and more people are recognizing it. I think support is also getting spotlight in boardroom conversations. So I think that I'm very glad to see that. I think the fundamental challenge has been that support has been seen as an organization, the sole responsibility of deflecting cases away from product and engineering teams. When you take that approach, the support was seen as a cost center. What has changed now is product velocity has changed. You're not making products on a yearly basis or a 2-year basis. That used to be the norm. Now products are changing on a bi-weekly basis or on a daily basis for some companies. So when your product velocity is changing that fast, there has to be a tight integration between support and product teams, support and customer success team, and support and engineering teams. You cannot just use support as a place to just deflect cases. You have to learn from what your customers are saying. So that's one. I think the other two major things that has happened, in addition to what Nick was saying, is we know that we are in the recurring revenue business. All companies are going into recurring revenue business. That transformation has already happened. Product-led growth is another big wave that has hit the industry in the last, I would say, 5 to 10 years. So that has fundamentally changed how people look at support, because in a product-led growth model, often support is your first interaction, even before you talk to sales, because you're trying the product. If something doesn't work, you have to contact support. You're not even a paid customer yet. So if your support experience delivery is not good in that time period, you're losing the customer. You're actually encountering churn before the customer actually paid for the product. So that's one big moment, right? And the third wave, which is more recent, is usage-based pricing. More and more companies are moving to usage-based pricing, especially with the advent of AI. Usage-based pricing is going to become the most dominant pricing methodology going forward, because AI permeates everywhere. It automates many tasks. Seat-based licensing doesn't always work. So what is the connection between usage-based pricing and support? In usage-based pricing, you get paid only when customers use your product. The customers stop using the product, you don't get paid. The billing stops, the counter stops. So if there is a support issue that is blocking people from using the product, not only you're impacting potential expansion revenue, you're actually impacting actual revenue because it's not getting billed in the usage-based pricing model. Mm-hmm. So the revenue impact for support is pretty compelling right now. So I think the notion support as a cost center is completely going away. It is a revenue center. It has a huge revenue impact. All core financial metrics, as Nick pointed out, is impacted by support, right? Whether it's your gross retention, whether it's your margins, whether it's LTV CAC, all of that is impacted by support experience.
Hey, John, if you don't mind me adding one follow-on comment, because Krishna said something to me very powerful. You mentioned the term product velocity. And if you go back to the old world, which maybe some folks are watching don't even know about, the world of on-premise software or hardware where you install something, right? Fundamentally, in many cases, people install that, it works, and sometimes they didn't even want to upgrade. And the vendor might have released something once a year, once every 18 months. I'm sure Krishna and John, you had that experience, right? Fast forward to today, where SaaS is fundamentally about not just reducing the effort for the customer, but creating continuous innovation, right? That's what you're talking about with velocity, Krishna. And I think one of the challenges is if a SaaS company gets a customer using the initial functionality and never gets them to take advantage of the innovation, over time, that customer is not going to be very sticky and they might go to another vendor. Now, how do you take advantage of new innovation and functionality from a vendor? Well, part of it's, training your team and things like that, but a big part is that support interaction. You try to turn on a new feature. Sometimes you need help with it. Sometimes there's a technical issue. Sometimes your team has an issue on your side. Who do you call? You call support. And so if support isn't world-class nowadays, the customer won't keep continuously enhancing their adoption of your functionality to do more and more. And that customer is on a path to churning over time.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I know that we have a research practice for education services, and you've got a product for onboarding customers. But in reality, support often ends up being the training center because new capabilities are being introduced so quickly, and that's who they're going to call for help. So clearly, there are some pacesetter companies that have support and success working closely together. You have joint customers that are doing that. But I know there are still a lot of companies out there that aren't. And in fact, I continue to hear from companies that I would say the groups almost have an adversarial relationship. So I'd like to hear from both of you how you envision the strategic alignment between support and success, ultimately contributing to a more seamless customer experience.
Go ahead, Krishna.
I'm going to defer this question to Nick, because I think, Nick, you're a customer of SupportLogic. Your team has been phenomenally great in working with us, and we are super excited about the success we have achieved with your team, and as you see on the screen. How do you see within your organization, because you are the leader in customer success, how do you see the synergy, and how do you see the support and success working together from your perspective?
Yeah, Krishna, it's such a good point. And you're right, John, that sometimes there's an antagonistic relationship. The CSM is frustrated that the support team isn't, handling their customer issues in a timely and consistent fashion. The support team's frustrated that CSM is not aligned on the overall account needs. And they say, gosh, if the CSM was better managing the account, support would be much easier. So you have this sort of logjam between them. Krishna, to your point, a number of our customers use SupportLogic and Gainsight, but I'm going to use us as an example. So Steve Davis, I'm going to call it Steve if you're watching, is an incredible longtime member of Gainsight. It might be 7 or 8 years he's been here. Part of our support organization, one of the leaders in our support organization. He's been the champion for bringing SupportLogic in to Gainsight. And he every week slacks me about something cool, new thing we're doing at SupportLogic. Broadly, we're doing specialized routing. So to your point, Krishna, about helping the customer take advantage of velocity, getting the customer to the right specialized knowledge versus this antiquated notion of tier one, right? It should go to the person that's going to help them right away. So that's very exciting. And what that means for the CSM is the customer is adopting more functionality. They're more likely to stay and grow. Now, second thing, Steve's talked about to me is then identifying the kind of looming risks, the smoke before the fire, where we all know there could be one case and the customer's, moderately upset, and there's another case, and there's another case. And to Krishna, to your point, it's not just sentiment analysis, it's a lot more than that. And so identifying the smoke before there's a fire, which helps the support team, but also helps the CS team. Because when there's a fire, sometimes you can't put it out, right? Like, think about sort of the real world. And what that means is when there's a fire in the customer world, sometimes they're already planning to churn you. So those ideas of getting to the right resource at the right time to help the customer and then finding the smoke before the fire, those are two things our team is getting incredible value from in working with SupportLogic.
So John, I think to add to that, my perspective is the following, right? When the companies are really, really small, and we are a startup and then we're growing, and I've seen the journey from company being super small, and as we're going to different stages, how support and success alignment differs. And what I mean by that is when you're really small, your engineering is your support. You don't have a dedicated support function when you're super small, right? Your engineering team, the CEO, everybody jumps on every customer issue, solves problems, and then you want to make the customers happy. Then at some point in time, you will hire CSMs. And CSMs initially will handle a lot of support cases. And it's not ideal for CSMs to handle all support cases because that reduces the effectiveness of CSM, right? CSMs are not doing proactive stuff. They're not thinking about expansion. They're not thinking about strategic relationship. They're not thinking about revenue and all that good stuff. So we went through the journey. In our case, CSMs were handling support initially, right? Then when you introduce support, then the roles and responsibility becomes very crystal clear. And then the synergy between support and success, to Nick's point, is not only giving early warning and the smoke to the customer success team, and so that they can proactively get involved and have the strategic conversation with the customer, not just tactically bugs related information, because if your CSMs are only doing that, they're not moving the conversations forward. They're becoming very, very tactical, right? I think that's where we saw a great deal of synergies. Our CSM's level of functioning has elevated quite a bit since support is handling a lot of this sentiment and assigning the cases to the right people and giving early warning to customer success team. It has really made the organization, the post-sales organization, much more efficient.
Well, I want to move to the Gen AI topic because everybody is so interested in that right now. So how do you see Gen AI or generative AI enhancing the nature of customer engagement? And what are some of the real world benefits that you're seeing that organizations are getting from implementing it?
Well, I can go.
Let me take a first step.
Oh, please go ahead, Krishna.
Go ahead,
yeah, please. Okay, if you, I think for the team, if you go ahead to the slide, first slide on Gainsight, I'll just give you kind of a visual of how we think about it. And I think this will marry very well with what Krishna is going to talk about. So, in our world, AI is the center of everything, and everyone kind of listening knows that. But I think there's a real opportunity in the world of kind of customer experience, customer success, to make that a reality. Fundamentally, if you look at generative AI, one of the core things it needs to sort of really get the power is human data, like text data, images, video, and so on. And if you've used any of the generative AI products for consumers like ChatGPT and others, you know that. You type things in, you get some interesting answers out, right? And so for us, because we deal with customer experience data, things like notes, call transcripts, emails, survey responses, there's a lot of text in there, just a ton, right? And so we have so much text from our customers in Gainsight. In addition, it's a key thing in terms of generative AI is being able to work in the workflow of your team versus a totally separate system. And I think this is going to fit well with what SupportLogic does. So for Gainsight, we now have 4 products, like I mentioned, one about scaling your CSM team, one about driving adoption of your product, one about educating your customers, one about community. Each of these has a tremendous amount of data that can be mined for generative AI. In the CS world, things like information you're communicating with your clients. In the product adoption world, feedback you're getting in the product for customers in terms of surveys and so on. In the education world, all that training content that you're creating. And then that community world, all those posts people make, all the likes and all that kind of stuff. And so what we're doing is running all of that through our generative AI technology. We call it Horizon AI, where we leverage things like GPT on the back end, what we've built a layer around it, to then give our customers better insights, more effectiveness, more efficiency, and broadly better experience for their customers. And just to make that real, if you go to the next slide, the way we think about this is that you go ahead, back one. Fundamentally, that support experience should be one of the ways you measure the customer experience. If you're watching, you may know Gainsight provides this concept of customer health, and that might be adoption, deployment, ROI, but definitely the experience and support. And so we today can bring in data from SupportLogic as well as your case management system and really understand the experience and support. But to show where generative AI fits in, if you go to this last slide we have, the way I think about it is there's these 3 levers. And I alluded to this in the beginning around the business case for support for customer experience. Number one is how do we get our teams to be more efficient so they can spend more time with customers and less time behind the scenes updating data? Number two, how do we make those conversations with the customers more effective? And then number three, how do we do all that in driving a better experience? And these all map to the business cases I talked about around efficiency, gross and net retention, and advocacy. So today, just as some examples, we do things like, from an efficiency perspective, eliminating the need to prep your executives or team members for client meetings. My team has had to do that many times over the years. Now I can go into what's called Gainsight cheat sheet and get a fully automated view of key stakeholders, risks, opportunities, objectives for the client. Gainsight today integrates with a number of meeting recording systems and generates fully automated notes with action items, so CSMs never take notes again. We'll look at the sentiment of conversations, including pulling data from SupportLogic to understand sentiment score versus the CSM just kind of saying red, yellow, green. We'll do the same thing for likelihood to renew, and then analyzing all surveys to understand all the feedback, because you can't click through every one of those text responses. And we have a lot of things going forward, which are all about the same themes around efficiency, effectiveness, and experience, and kind of pushing that experience to your customers. So that's how we think about it. Krishna, how about yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Nick. That's pretty compelling overview of what you presented. Let me actually go back and run through some of the way we are looking at it. And we are looking at it both from an angle of predictive AI and generative AI, right? I think both has a place. I know all the buzzes about generative AI. We're doing a lot of stuff in generative AI, but also want to talk about the power of predictive AI, right? So today we do sentiment analysis, great, right? So you can get the pulse of the customer from the support tickets, and you will understand what the customer pain points is, whether documentation gap, whether you have any upsell opportunity. All of that can be extracted from support conversations. So that's something we do. We've been doing it for many, many years, right? Second thing which we do is routing the case to the right subject matter expert within the company, which is what Nick was talking about, one of the top use cases within Gainsight, which is predictive AI, predicting who's the right engineer for this particular customer at this particular time point for this particular case. This by itself increases CSAT significantly. This by itself reduces your time to resolution significantly. This by itself, the customer feels like they're getting a top quality support from you, right? So that's something we've been doing for quite some time. But we don't stop there in just routing the case and stopping there. The generative AI functionality where we've added there is in agent co-pilot or agent assistance. So every agent who gets assigned a case, they may be technically good in handling the case, may or may not have the soft skill capabilities for handling this particular case, right? It could be language issue. It could be grammatical issues they may run into. It could be empathy, because they may lack customer empathy. They may be technically proficient, but they may not know how to interact with customers. So our generative AI basically allows you to do response assist. So when you're responding back to a customer, you can recompose that message. And so that not only you're answering customers' questions technically, but also taking care of all the soft skills that you need to have a greater support experience. So that's something, so we don't just stop in routing a case, you can also do response assist once a case is assigned. That's where the generative AI piece comes in. And the second thing about generative AI piece is that today we have a product for quality monitoring support engineers interaction. So for every support conversations, we compute a QA score. Now this technology, we're looking at extending this for customer success interactions as well. Because just like you are looking at quality monitoring for support engineers, you have a scorecard that basically tells you this is how you grade your support engineers. You may want to grade your customer success managers too. You want to make sure they are following certain protocols. You may want to make sure that they are talking to the customers in the right tone and asking the right questions and having the framework. This ensures consistency in delivering customer success to your customer base. So we're looking at extending this for CSMs, right? This is where, again, generative AI is a huge component of it. It's actually predictive AI and generative AI blended together. And the last one I want to talk about is the health score, right? And we do our own health score. I know Gainsight has its own health score. Our health score is looking at support leading indicators for a health score. because we connect to multiple systems of record, the multiple systems of record could be your support ticketing system, it could be an engineering ticketing system, it could be your chat system, and so on and so forth. We are looking at doing account summarization across these different channels of interactions, because you want to know what's happening with the account, not just in a siloed view from a customer success perspective, or not a siloed view just from a support perspective, but what's happening across the full spectrum, including your engineering issues that the customers have opened, right? Being able to summarize, these are the outstanding engineering issues the customer has, and being able to give you a snapshot. So that's something we're super excited to release, and it's currently working on. Today we do case summarization, but extending that to account summarization.
Krishna, just a couple of things since we use it internally that really got my eyes on what you said. One of them is this last bullet point you have on this slide, where I think historically, you'd probably agree, support teams provided feedback to product teams, but it was often in a relatively ad hoc and sort of subjective manner. And we struggle with this at Gainsight. How do we know those are the right things to work on? To the extent you can use AI to help identify those, that's really, really great. And then the second thing is, I think quality really resonates both for me as a CEO, but also for our customer base, where our customers want consistent quality that's not dependent on the human being, whether it's a CSM or a support person. And you can help coach your team to be the best they can be. So anyways, when you have those features deployed, let us know, because we'll definitely start using them. So
yeah, definitely. I know this is
we've got a lot of questions from the audience, but I want to ask one more question before we go to the audience. And, in my opening, I talked about this as budget cycle, and I'm hoping that you could both give a little advice on really measuring the success of these AI investments and demonstrating that to stakeholders, to executives. What are the key performance indicators or KPIs that organizations should be focusing on to measure the success of these AI investments, and how can they effectively communicate that ROI to IT and stakeholders so they can continue to get budget to invest in this technology? What are you seeing work in the real world?
I'll share a couple of things. And this is trying to be super practical, because of course you can pitch the long-term benefits in terms of retention, advocacy, et cetera. And in a boom economy, I think that resonates a lot. In a challenging economy, I think that's not the music your CFO wants to hear. So a couple of tactical things, I think, to present to your CFO. One is, everyone's about efficiency, efficient growth, durable growth. And so the question is, can you avoid hiring more people in support or CS, basically reduce your incremental cost by actually using some of this automation? And we've definitely seen it for sure. Our clients routinely improve, client loads, meaning customers per CSM, by 25 to 50% using Gainsight, right? So that efficiency key is so important. Unfortunately, in some cases, it can involve cutting people, but I think more commonly, it's just not hiring as many people as you normally would. So that's one thing. The second thing, though, is appealing to people's emotions. And whether you're CFO or CEO, you know about that painful client loss, right? That client that you lost that might have had these early indicators. And can you go back and almost do a bit of an autopsy on the patient in terms of the client? When did they have support frustration? Would SupportLogic have picked it up much earlier so we could act on it? When did we get out of kilter with their objectives and the relationship? Could Gainsight's customer success product have impacted that? Should they have been better trained and gotten better value? And so to me, it's a combination of efficiency, which is very quantifiable, but then appealing to the stories that kind of scar people, right? Nobody likes it when you lose a big client, particularly at a surprise, and can use the technology to show how we could have avoided being surprised.
Great point, Nick. And I think the second point that you made is near and dear for me, right? Every support case or every customer success interaction, there's so much story to unfold. It often gets lost, right? It gets lost because it's captured in some place. It's never really broadly shared. It's not something people discuss at a company-wide. The actual pain of customer, or why you lost a customer, that is not a story that's broadly discussed and shared. I think bringing that to the table and narrating that emotional pain point with the CFO definitely makes a difference. The other thing also I would say is that the benefits of AI actually permeates across not just your department, even though the purchase could have been done by the support team or by the customer success team. The benefit accrues everyone in the company. There are benefits for IT team, there are benefits for engineering team, there are benefits for a product team. I think taking that a holistic look is super important, because this is one of the fundamental shifts in the AI. AI is something, the technology that has impact across the company, irrespective of where you're deploying. It has impacts across the company. I think communicating that story is also super important.
Yeah, I totally agree. And Vanessa, I know we've got an awful lot of questions from the audience, so we do have 5 minutes remaining. Can I turn it over to you to start going through some of those?
Absolutely. And then I did just want to bring this to everyone's attention. We're taking a deeper dive with Brian, Kate, and Ryan here coming up on Thursday, December 14th through this webinar here for SupportLogic. So please go ahead and register if you want more information there. And when I look at our questions, I do want to just encourage everybody, since we are running out of time, even if we don't answer your question here live, we will make sure to follow up with you. So please go ahead and submit those questions anyway. That being said, I'm going to jump in with Jill's question. And they ask, what challenges do organizations commonly face when trying to align their support and success functions? And how can these challenges be overcome?
Krishna, you want to take that one first?
Yeah, I think we briefly touched upon this in the earlier discussion, right? I think the fundamental is clear division of the roles and responsibilities, right? You don't want your support teams to try to become a customer success team and customer success team handling all tactical support issues. I think clearly understanding what's the roles and responsibilities, I think is super crucial. I think it's also needs to be married with the right collaboration framework. You don't also want to create too much division that they become two different silos, right? You want to make sure the knowledge is shared, but the roles and responsibilities are clearly specified for these two different functions.
And the only thing I'd add super quick is transparency. So there's a lot of experience people have where a support case goes into, some people might call it a black hole, like what happened? Where did it go? The customer's frustrated, the CSM's frustrated because the customer's asking them. So transparency to me between engineering, who might be working on the case from a tech perspective, the support team and the CSM team, so they're all working off the same page in terms of client sentiment, case status, impact on customer health, things like that.
Okay, I'm going to squeeze in one last question here from Spencer. And they say, I'm a customer of both Gainsight and SupportLogic. What are the shared signals and how do I set up the integrations between both?
Yeah, let me take this one. It's fairly straightforward. So SupportLogic has an eventing framework. So when we detect a signal in the support tickets, whether it's customer frustration, churn signals, or very negative sentiments, production issues, so on and so forth, anything that needs the knowledge to be shared with the CSM team, we take those signals and we ingest that into the customer timeline in the Gainsight platform. And from there, you can use those information to compute your scorecards in Gainsight. You can create all those beautiful dashboards there in Gainsight. And you can choose which of the signals you care about in the SupportLogic platform and only deliver those signals to the Gainsight platform.
Okay, great. Well, I have to say one more time, we have so many questions. However, we're out of time. We can't answer them all, but we haven't forgotten about you and we'll make sure to follow up. And with that, since we have come to the conclusion of today's webinar, just a few reminders before we sign off for today. There will be an exit survey at the end. If you could take a few minutes to provide your feedback on the content and your experience by filling out that brief survey. And know that a link to the recorded version of today's webinar will be sent out within the next 24 hours. I'd now like to take this time to thank our presenters, John, Krishna, and Nick, for delivering a truly outstanding session. And thank you to everyone for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us for today's webinar, Aligning Support and Success with AI to Improve Customer Retention, brought to you by Technology and Services Industry Association and sponsored by SupportLogic. We look forward to seeing you at our next TSIA webinar. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you all.